Everyone, thanks for your patience with everything. Welcome tonight to our joint effort between Clean Energy New Hampshire, CEDC, North Country Chamber, and thanks to the sponsorship of Bangor Bank. I'm going to pass the baton over to Gabe from Clean Energy New Hampshire to introduce our speakers, and we'll get started.
All right, thank you all so much for coming. Can you guys hear me on the Zoom? I hope so. Yeah, can't say yeah. Thank you all so much for coming. I just wanted to thank Erica again for reaching out to everybody and bringing you all here today. And I wanted to thank Scott Mislansky from the CDFA, Ken Yearman from the USDA, and Mark Toussaint from Eversource, who's here to talk to us. I'll be on Zoom. There we go. So, as most of you are, you're businesses and you own farms. And as I'm sure a lot of you are feeling it right now, is you're feeling your energy bill right now. Oh, it's doubled for most people. And as a small business, it can be a large burden to you and your operating costs. So we wanted to take some time to talk about some ways that you can reduce your energy use and find ways to supplement energy as well. Buying energy, you're kind of stuck into what the rates your utility is giving you, right? It kind of feels like there's not a lot of power that you have, but there are a handful of things that you can do. One are energy efficiency measures for your business. You can weatherize your buildings to reduce heat and AC leakage. You're reducing your energy costs as well as making your buildings far more efficient. You can upgrade equipment to Energy Star certified, which they're more efficient equipment, saves you money in the long run, as well as being conscious of your consumption as well. And in times when energy is high, the prices are high, being smart about how much you use and when you're using is important as well. Another big thing you can do is to supplement your energy use. Solar is as cheap as it's ever been. And for farmers and small businesses, there's a lot of funding that comes from the USDA to help pay for these projects. Not just solar, but wind, biomass. If you're a farmer, especially dairy farms, manure energy and compost energy, these expanding industries, and there's money available for you to upgrade to these technologies. On top of some of the funding opportunities that some of our speakers are going to be talking about tonight, thanks to the new Inflation Reduction Act, there's now a 30% standard tax credit for you when you do an energy efficiency project. Let's say you spend $10,000 on a project, 3,000 of that will automatically be deducted from your taxes at the end of the year. And as it stands right now, this 30% will last until 2029. It's been extended for 7 more years. And you see there's a couple adders at the bottom too. If you're a brownfield site, which might be up here thanks to there are old industry sites, old logging sites. There's resources online to see if you qualify for these extra adders, but on top of everything we're talking about today, you qualify for this. So the first person I want to pass it off to is Scott Mislansky from the CDFA, the Community Development Finance Authority. They're great. They're also funded by the USDA, and they work really hard to bring money to small businesses for energy audits. So I'm going to pass it off to Scott now. Take it away.
Great, thanks, Gabe. Can you hear me okay?
Trying to make sure that we can get the volume as loud as we can.
All right, I can try to speak loud as well if that helps.
Yeah, if you can speak as loud as you can, that'd be great.
All right, I'll move closer too. And actually, Gabe, I was going to ask you a favor if it's possible for the speakers, can you scan the room with that camera, or can it not move just so we can say hi? You never get to see who you're talking to.
Yeah, I'm not
sure.
Let me. Oops.
Well, for some reason, it's moving forward.
Hold on, give me one
Yeah, and
second.
no worries if that's a,
If we can. Video. There we go. That should get everybody.
all right. Hello, everybody. It's just helpful to be able to see the room.
Okay.
All right. And then presentation, thank you. I don't know if that's, is that on screen?
Yeah, you're not sharing anymore.
Current slide. Okay.
All right, thank you. All set?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having us. My name is Scott Maslansky. I direct the clean energy finance work at the Community Development Finance Authority. I'll give a brief overview of our role in clean energy for businesses and also provide a little bit more detail on energy audits. I find that sometimes that's helpful. It's hard to know what your experience is in the room, but sometimes it's helpful to have an overview of what an audit is and how it can serve you. So the CDFA is a statewide community and economic development entity serving all of New Hampshire. We provide a variety of resources that include grants, loans, and tax credit equity in one of our specific programs. And our staff provides technical assistance in a variety of ways. Our clean energy programming can serve businesses, nonprofits, and for-profit businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities. The next slide, please. So a quick overview of our programs. It's essentially two areas. One is we have energy audit grants that can serve businesses. We have a similar program that serves nonprofits and municipalities. And these small grants cover 75% of the cost of a comprehensive energy audit, and are really useful for a business to help understand, which areas they might prioritize for investment. And it's a fairly easy application. We've been working within this program that has funding through USDA for a few years now. And then the other part is our clean energy financing. We have low interest loans, and for businesses that's 4.5% right now, up to a 10-year term. We really try to work with you on some flexibility where some private lenders might be challenging for you as a small or newer business, for example. And then we have the technical assistance I mentioned. My background is in energy auditing, so I'm happy to share some technical energy knowledge, as well as helping you with different financing opportunities, even if they're outside of CDFA, some of which you'll hear from today. Next slide. Thanks. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of some of the different projects that have been involved with our energy audit funds. So Paragon Digital Marketing in Keene, where I actually am now. This is a view from downtown, and we help them with some energy audit work as well as financing their solar array. You can see it's an old historic building, of which there are many, not necessarily old churches, but other historic buildings, up in the North Country, and with some challenges like, historic limitations or brick walls that are, not so easily, or folks aren't so eager to insulate. But they did some work on windows, they did insulation, they did heat pumps. And so the audit was very helpful in guiding them, and also how they can work within the context of this historic building. On the next slide, you'll see Goose Bay Lumber, which we assisted with energy audit funds that found opportunities specifically in solar and in lighting, as well as some opportunities for their looking at their systems that the motors. They switched over motors to some of them to electric from diesel, so that they could go ahead and use that solar to their best advantage. And that's in Chichester. And then on the next slide, just to give you some context of the businesses that we've served, you can see that, oh, and am I still on? Because it's frozen on my screen.
We can still hear you, Scott, but oh, there you go.
There it is. Okay. Thank you. So really quick, just to show that we've served businesses all around the state, in the North Country, southern part of the state, east and west, as well as the business types. So we've worked with restaurants and farms and childcare centers, sawmills, etc. Next slide. I wanted to give a just quick overview of what an energy audit is and dive in a little bit, because I think it's helpful for folks to understand if you don't already, but it might also help with some of the conversation later. So in an energy audit, there's a professional consultant that helps you think about your goals as a business that would relate to how your different systems in your buildings, how the building is configured, what are your goals, have you recently purchased it, have you had other upgrades, what are the existing conditions and concerns, historic energy use, comparing things to similar buildings in the same climate. And then the output is an energy audit report with recommended energy measures and a table. And so I'll walk through this table really quick with you, because this is kind of a key component. It shows differently in different audit reports, but essentially the same idea. And as you click through these, you'll see they just kind of show different parts of the report. So if you click on the first one, you'll see it just showing you the first column, which is the different energy savings measures and what is recommended. So in this case, this is a very simplified version, looking at some envelope measures, insulation and air sealing, converting to heat pumps, adding solar photovoltaics, and then each of the arrows in each of the columns. So the first is the cost. What's the estimated cost of doing this work? The estimated annual savings, how much are you expected to save each year from doing this measure? How long the measure is supposed to last, and that you're supposed to get savings from this measure. So in some cases, for insulation, it's usually longer. A heat pump lifetime, might be something like 15 years. Solar PV, you might put in there 25 years. Of course, these can vary depending on the type of equipment and the situation, but there are some standards in the industry, and that also the utilities use to gauge how they incentivize some of these areas that Mark might talk about. The total savings column is, over the life of that measure, how much are you expected to save? And again, in some cases, you might have needed to invest in these things anyway, so you can look at this in a variety of ways. The simple payback is how many years it takes with that annual savings to pay back the initial costs of what you're spending, what you're investing in. And then that last column, the investment gain, is really looking at after you've essentially paid back the cost of investing in any one or more of these measures. For the number of years that measure lasts, what's sort of the icing on the cake? What's kind of the net gain you'll get? And some folks that get more into the financials might look at this more as net present value and dive into the numbers more, but it kind of depends. So are you able to hear me okay still? Assuming yes, I will. The last piece of this is that boxed in area, conversion to heat pumps, which I don't think is, you're not seeing it on your screen there. But if you look at that line that says conversion to heat pumps, you'll see in the final column, it's actually a negative number. And the reason why I wanted to include that here is sometimes putting in especially HVAC equipment, the investment gain might not seem worth it, but if your heating system is, at the end of its life, you might be investing anyway. And sometimes there are other reasons why you still might want to invest, even though it doesn't look good here. And I'll talk about those now on the next slide. But yeah, so you might need to click through I'm looking at my screen as well, so there should be a series of those arrows, and then you'll get to the next slide. You're keeping patched together, but it costs you money every year. Again, those are costs not reflected in there and in that payback. Comfort. You really want to be, thinking about your employees or your tenants or whoever's in there about how they're feeling. Are there different parts of the building that are some are warm, some are hot, and so upgrading your system actually will really help. It could help with productivity. It could help reduce complaints. Et cetera. Plus, in some cases, if you're putting in heat pumps, you might be adding cooling where you didn't have it before. Health and safety, obviously having better lighting in a building is going to be very helpful for both productivity and for safety. Not to mention ventilation right now is obviously an important topic and will continue to be. So thinking about the ventilation systems that might be connected to your HVAC. And the value of that in addition to the energy savings. And last but not least is incentives. So incentives change over time and they can change within a year. Their eligibility it varies between situations. So a lot of times incentives are not detailed in these audit reports because you may not implement these until at some point the incentives have actually changed. But they're very important pieces to be considering because it could take you from a payback that you're not willing to invest in to a payback that you're very much willing to invest in. So that covers everything I wanted to talk about. Sorry, it went on a little bit there, but please, be in touch with us early in the project development. I'm happy to talk you through this and obviously the resources that are coming up from Mark and Ken. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. I heard you loud and clear. I hope the people in the audience are able to hear what's happening. The chat message said that they lost audio. I don't know if they've regained it. Is it possible for someone from CEDC to let us know if you can?
Yeah, I'm on Zoom. This is Glenn Koppelman. I can hear and see everything that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think anybody who's connected remotely can certainly hear and see everybody. I just don't know if people at the event are still able to enjoy the presentation.
I can reach out to Erica if you like and see if I can get an answer from her.
Yeah, I just messaged them through the chat, and
I'm gonna try texting her.
Okay.
They just put in the chat that they can hear us.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, excellent. I know I feel silly. Okay. So maybe I should share my screen then.
Ken, they said that the owl isn't working, so I don't know what that means for the presentation video. It still might. I'm not sure if they're able to present or not. I think you can't see them, maybe, hopefully.
I think what it means is that we on Zoom can't see any folks in the room.
Okay, that's all.
Oh, okay. All right. As long as we know they're there and can see and hear us. I guess I will start. Can everyone see my title slide?
Yes.
And they said speak as loud as you can. I guess it's hard for them to hear.
Yeah, it shows up fine.
Used to speaking loud, so we'll give it a shot here. Hi, my name is Ken Yearman from USDA Rural Development, sitting in beautiful downtown Barrie, Vermont at the moment. So I'm going to talk about one specific program that we offer, the Rural Energy for America program. I'll tell you just a high overview of rural development, who we are. We have over 50 loan grant and loan guarantee programs. Seems like we're getting more and more every week. In fact, we just got one a week ago about fertilizer production. So the administration is really gearing up and adding more programs that deal with food, especially, and making America more energy independent and food independent as well, with what's going on around the world. So we have three main divisions in rural development: business, where I sit, affordable housing, and community development, which is very active up in the Colebrook area. Community facilities does things like libraries, police cars, fire trucks, sewer projects, clean water, and it is really geared towards municipalities and nonprofits, whereas in business programs, we're really geared towards for-profit businesses and agricultural producers. This is where your local offices are, 3 in Vermont, 3 in New Hampshire. We have a single person office up in Lancaster. They may have added another person there, primarily single family housing out of that office. And in Montpelier, Vermont is our home office, but we are certainly well in tune with the North Country in Coos County, and do a lot of work up there. It's a great area. I would have loved to have been up there today. So focusing strictly on business programs over the last 5 years, well, not just business programs, over the last 5 years, the top number, about almost $1.3 billion that our little offices have been able to inject into the Vermont and New Hampshire economies, whether it's businesses or homes or schools, roads, not really roads, but other infrastructure. 87 million of that has been from business programs, and 9.2 million from Rural Energy for America, which I'll dive into a little bit more now. So what is REAP, as we shorten it to? REAP is geared to for-profit small businesses and ag producers. Ag producers can be nonprofit. I've run into 1 or 2 of those. We provide grants and loan guarantees. I caught myself. We do not provide loans. We provide loan guarantees. Big difference. But the grants are really the bread and butter of the program, and they're what everybody is after, of course. A loan guarantee, if you don't know what that is, your lender would come to us seeking a guarantee, maybe 80% of the loan, to kind of boost their confidence in making the loan to you. So they are helpful, but it's nothing that you as a business owner or farmer would call us up and say, hey, I want a loan guarantee, because if you don't need one, you don't want it. But it's nice because it can make the difference between getting the loan or not. Nationally, roughly 20,000 farms and businesses have benefited from REAP. It's been around quite a long time. I think early 2000s in one form or another. And in 10 years, you can see the bottom bullet point, we've awarded about 329 grants, almost 15 million in just the 2 states. So what type of grants do we offer? Well, there's really 2 different types of projects. that we focus on: renewable energy systems and energy efficiency improvements. And you can see the minimum grants and the maximum grants. They can really get up there, talking some serious dollars. But we set aside 20% of the total funding for the small grants. We call that restricted, so that all the big guys don't come in and wipe all the money. So that we like that part of the program. Grants go up to 25% of your eligible project costs. There's total project costs and there's eligible project costs. Things that aren't eligible would be residential housing. If there's a residential component to the project, it's either going to not be eligible, or in the case where a farm might have 1 meter serving the farm and the household, we'd want to know about that up front to see if we can make it eligible, because more than half of the energy at that meter has to be going to the business, and we would prorate the grant amount accordingly. If it's not more than half, then it's not going to be eligible. Loan guarantees, I'm not going to get back into those. You can see the minimum and maximum, so there's some pretty significant dollar amounts there. Some examples of the types of projects that we see frequently. Air source heat pumps aren't on there. There wasn't room. Seeing those more and more. Hydro wasn't on there. Seeing quite an uptick in hydroelectric projects. This is an example of a project that was done a few years ago, Sunset Lake Farm. Put this in here just to give you an example of the 25% grant of $79,000, plus they financed the rest of it with a bank. And this particular solar array generates 75% of their traditional electric needs. So they're saving quite a bit of money. Incidentally, the 75% that comes from you can be bank financing, it can be CDFA, it can be your source, it can be your own funds. You don't have to show it when you apply. It certainly is best if you do, though, because when we score these applications, if you do have your funding in place, kind of figured out going into it, you will score better when we look at it. So to be eligible, agricultural producer is an entity or a person that derives at least 50% of their income from producing. And really, we don't see a lot of people applying in this form. This would be more of a Schedule C or a Schedule F type of situation, where someone is filing on their personal tax returns and they have W-2 income. More often than not, we're seeing farms come in as an LLC or a partnership. So they're classified as a small business, when they're really both an ag producer and a small business. To be small, we look at the SBA's table of NAICS codes, and it's an industry classification code. They're really quite generous. We very seldom run into a problem with a business being too big for REAP. Unless you're a ski area that's owned by Vail, or have been recently bought out by a larger company. I've seen that happen a couple of times. And you need to be in a rural area, which In Vermont is no problem. There's varying degrees of what's considered rural, depending on what program you're talking about. And for our purposes with REAP, anything around Manchester and Nashua, you want to check with us. There's actually a tool right there at the top, a web link you can go to and actually punch in your address to see if you're eligible. But if we're talking with a group strictly in Coos County, we have absolutely nothing to worry about. You're geographically going to be eligible. Okay. I didn't give you an updated slide. Shame on me. Well, REAP is a creature of the Farm Bill, which is rewritten every 4 to 5 years. And these deadlines that you see are mandated in the legislation. We have one October 31st and one March 31st, unless it falls on a weekend, and then it's the following Monday. I mentioned restricted funds previously. Again, those are smaller grants. So 20% of the total nationally is set aside for grants that max out of $20,000. So in October, we only offer grants of up to $20,000 or less, subject to the 25% maximum, of course. So if you have a $100,000 project, you can still apply for a $20,000 grant. If it's a $60,000 project, obviously that would be $15,000. We do that twice. We do it in the fall, as I just mentioned, and in the spring, the second half of those funds. But we also have the unrestricted funds, which are the larger grants. And from a previous slide, I showed you they can go up to $250,000 for energy efficiency and $500,000 grant for a renewable project. The reason it says to be determined for the amounts is because we don't know yet what we're going to get for this year. In my revised slide, I had filled in last year's amounts, which about 140,000 for each state for the restricted, so 70,000 each competition, and roughly 470,000 for the unrestricted in each state. This year is going to be very different, and I'll tell you why shortly. The program is not that difficult to apply for. Some employ grant writers, others do not. Depends on your comfort level with paperwork, but of course there's paperwork. I've listed the primary application materials here. It's better to get them from us directly. Call me or shoot me an email. Going to our website to find these, it can be done, but you don't want to get to the deadline date and not have everything all lined up. Supporting House by the Side of the Road in Wilton, if anyone's ever been there. It's a REAP grantee. Some tips, terms and conditions, energy audits required for energy efficiency projects over $200,000 in total cost. That's new this year. Used to be 80,000 or more. So they've increased the threshold. If you're under 200,000, you can have an assessment, which is very similar to an audit, but it's a little more relaxed. Sometimes I've seen them on 2 pieces of paper. You know, if you're just dealing with a couple of pieces of equipment, not a lot of analysis going into it. You're not dealing with blower doors and that type of thing. Very important that you submit your application, have it reviewed for completeness before you start spending money on the project, because anything you spend after we or before we receive a complete application is going to be ineligible. Everyone has to get a unique entity ID, which isn't the most pleasant thing to do, but they've actually come a long way to making it a little bit easier. You go to a website, you register your company, and eventually over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, you will get a number which has to go on your application. So that should be started early. And we encourage you to get your applications in early, preferably by electronic means, but by all means, we can still accept them by mail. If someone is going to drop them off, it's best to make an appointment to do that. The hydro, we did it maybe 5 years ago in Vermont. What else will you need? Tax returns so that we can see that you're small. If you have affiliated companies, if your company is owned by a company, it's owned by a company, we would need those returns as well to kind of aggregate everything together. If you're a new business, projections, REAP doesn't really play well with new businesses, to be honest with you, because there's no history of replacing of energy that you're going to replace. So if you're starting up, you really can't do an energy efficiency project. There might be some exceptions, but if you're doing a solar project to replace an existing energy use, there needs to be a history there to replace, right? I mean, this makes sense. That's why startups don't really work that great with REAP. But we'll work with you. Don't hesitate to call and ask. You need to have a firm project when you apply. It can't be a what if, because estimates and that type of thing have to come in with your application. Matching funds, again, you don't have to show that you've got the money, but it does help because these grants are competitive, they're scored, and the highest ranking applications get the funding. Our purchase agreements, if you're selling power from one entity, your company, to another, we would need to see those as well. Want to mention too, vehicles of any type are not eligible. I hear dinging. I don't know if that's for me to shut up or not, but this is my last slide. Good example of another company in Lebanon, Patch Forest or Patch Orchards. It's an example of someone who has actually come back several times and received more than one REAP grant, which you can do. You can apply for one energy efficiency project and one renewable energy project in a federal fiscal year, but you can't apply for 2 energy efficiency projects or 2 renewable energy projects in the same year. But you can come back year after year. You do take a point penalty for being a repeat grantee, but we actually do have a fair number of folks who have been successful in coming back. So that's a good thing. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Let's see.
Thank you, Ken. That was great. I think now we're going to pass it off to Mark to talk about some of the New Hampshire Saves programs that are available to businesses.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sorry if I ate into too much time.
Nope, that's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Terrific. All right. So I think I will try to share my screen. And are you able to see that?
Yes, you might want to put it in presenter mode though.
How's that? Any better?
I think upper left from beginning, you might want to hit that to make it bigger.
Yeah, we can see it, Mark.
All right. So thanks for having me, everybody. My name is Mark Toussaint. I'm the supervisor of the small commercial energy efficiency programs at Eversource. I work both in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. So I live in New Hampshire. I've lived here my whole life. What I'm going to talk about today is not just Eversource's programs, but in case any of you are customers of the other electric and gas utilities in New Hampshire, New Hampshire Saves is a partnership of all four entities in New Hampshire: Eversource, Liberty, New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and Unitil. So I'll talk a little bit about what New Hampshire Saves is, talk about our commercial, industrial, municipal programs, which is what will apply to most of you tonight. Some of you, if you own farms, might have properties that are acting as a business, but are metered by your utility as a residence. We do have residential programs as well. We have new construction programs that I'll talk about. And then I'll give you some resources about how to get started. So New Hampshire Saves is just a partnership of the four utilities in New Hampshire and our stakeholders at the Public Utilities Commission and throughout the state. Clean Energy New Hampshire, your host tonight, is one of those stakeholders. And what we do is we work together with the group of stakeholders, regulators, and utilities and customers to save energy in a wide variety of settings. And our focus is on the fuels that we sell. So for Eversource, that happens to be electricity. For Liberty, that's electricity and natural gas. Unitil is electricity and natural gas. And then New Hampshire Electric Co-op is electricity only. Our funding sources, you can see this if you go home and check on the bottom of your bill. You'll see a small charge. For most of you, it'll be very small. That says systems benefit charge. Mine at my house is about a little over $2 a month. If you were a big manufacturer, it could be tens of thousands of dollars. So it all depends on how much power you use because it's based on a per kilowatt hour rate. Second source of funding is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, which is a greenhouse gas reduction program that, as you might have guessed, is run regionally. And that raises funds through your electric bill as well. The different states implement that differently. In New Hampshire, our RGGI implementation is focused on municipal projects with the belief that when you save energy at a town building, you're saving money for the taxpayers. And so it's a fair way to spread the funds across the state. So I'll talk first about our commercial, industrial, municipal programs. And the point I want to get across is for all the utilities, we will look at anything that'll save electricity or natural gas cost effectively. So we can take a look at lighting. That's been the bread and butter of the program for the last 20 years. That's changing a little bit, but it's still there. Lighting controls are a big area that we're looking at. Motors, variable speed drives, which do have applications on a number of farms. HVAC systems, we do kitchen equipment, we do walk-in refrigeration, and then we do custom measures. And some examples of custom might be really anything that doesn't fit into these cookie cutter categories. But some examples might be your process at your wastewater plant. It might be a snow gun at the ski area that you go to, might be an injection molding machine. Really anything that needs a little bit more investigation, and a little bit more engineering work, but we can help you to work out the savings for those. And as long as the savings are, as long as the savings support the expense of the project, we can help you to fund that project. One of our biggest offerings for small commercial customers is our turnkey lighting and refrigeration programs. These are available to anybody with demand under 200 kilowatts. And that's going to be, I'm going to guess, virtually all of the farms in New Hampshire. It includes a free audit where a vendor can go in and do a lighting or refrigeration assessment for you. They take a look at your current system and they propose a new system for you. They spell out all of the costs. They spell out all of the benefits of it, all the energy you're going to save. They would, if you hire them to do the job, they would then source the materials for you. They would install them. They would handle disposal of the old materials, and they'd handle any needed warranty repairs for typically a period of 2 years. And then often your manufacturer warranty goes beyond that. Now, the utility pays about anywhere from half to 3/4 of the costs of those projects. And for the money that's left, we can often finance those at 0% for you. You don't have to take the financing, but if you choose to, we can do that, and it's very easy to do. We have a couple of different options for that. So we also have, if you prefer to do the work yourself, you can definitely save money on the project because you're not paying an electrician to put the lights in. If you have a friend or you're skilled in doing the work yourselves, you can go ahead and use our prescriptive incentives. Those are published on nhsaves.com, and they're just set incentives per unit. So it might be for a motor, might be for a certain type of light. And all you have to do is let us know what you're doing ahead of time. So you need to let us know what's there and what you're putting in, and we work up a rebate offer for you. We send it to you ahead of time. It usually takes about a week to turn that around. You sign it, return it to accept the offer. We reserve the money for you, and you go ahead and put in the project. Once it's done, you usually get a check within 2 months. Now, we've actually heard from customers that process can be a little bit long. We try to make it as quick as we can, but to speed things up, we took a look at our 2 most common measures, or 3 most common: lighting, HVAC, and food service. And if you have equipment in those areas that you're putting in, you can actually go to a distributor in New Hampshire and tell them you want the midstream incentives. And what that means is they're just going to take our incentive and take it right off of your sale price at the counter. And then at the end of the month, we settle up with them. So it's a good deal for us because we're writing 1 check at the end of the month instead of 200 checks. That's a good deal for you because you walk away with your incentive immediately rather than waiting for it. And you don't have to do any paperwork. So it's a really nice system that's been working really well. And we've been processing a lot of our lighting projects that way. The one thing on this program and on all of our programs, in order to get the incentives, you do agree that at some point, somebody might show up to inspect the project to make sure that the number of lights that we expected are installed and working and in place. And all that does is it guarantees to us that we're achieving the savings that we want to. And that allows us to go to the state confidently and say, this is what we did this year. This is the amount of energy we saved. So it's just a verification process, very non-invasive, or as non-invasive as it can be. You just have to schedule with the inspector and let them see the lights. So I mentioned we have financing. We've got 3 types. If any of you are involved in municipal government, we have Smart Start, which is a 20-year-old program where we do 0% interest, 0% financing for municipalities only. This is for electric retrofit projects. And when we do these projects, we structure the loan so that the payment equals the savings. So in other words, if you had $1,000 electric bill and we did a project with you and it got you down to $800 a month, say at your town hall or school or whatever, you would continue to pay us $1,000 a month, but that $200 difference becomes your loan payment. And so you don't have to have any out-of-pocket costs with that. You just sign up for the loan. We pay the contractor up front. We buy the equipment, pay the labor. You pay us back over a few years on your bill. And at the end of those couple of years, you own all the savings and you own the equipment. Similarly, we have an on-bill financing program for small commercial customers. Works in a very, very similar way. That same structure where it's designed so that the savings that your project generates becomes your loan payment so that you don't have to impact your budget at all in order to take one of these loans, in order to get one of these energy efficiency projects installed. Third option, and now that small business financing only covers, again, electric retrofit projects. So if you're doing something else like oil or propane, weatherization, new construction, a heat pump, something like that, and you needed financing, we work with a company called NEF. It's National Energy Improvement Fund. It's actually a nonprofit. And what they do is they go out and arrange third-party financing for energy efficiency projects. We go ahead and buy down the interest so that you can be at 0% or very close to it when you do your project. So we have 3 different options depending on what type of customer you are and how you want to work with us. Either way is fine with us, or you still have the option to just fund the project yourself and move ahead with it. So we also offer technical assistance, and that can come in a number of different flavors. One is a scoping study where people call us and say, listen, I've got a feeling my power bill is higher than it should be for my facility. Can you send somebody in? And we can send an engineer in and do kind of a top to bottom walkthrough and see where the major energy users are in your facility, where you might be finding waste. So a lot of times this is done in industrial settings. And one of the big findings is compressed air leaks. So if you can hear an air compressor leaking, you're losing a bunch of money. We can send these guys in to detect the leaks and repair them almost right away. Typically next visit, they'll do it. We can also do focused investigations. So if you're doing a new injection molding machine, like I mentioned earlier, we can take a look at how much that unit will cost you in power, and we can compare it to other units on the market for you. So you can take a look at where, if you've got a problem area or a new piece of equipment coming or something like that, we can help you pinpoint the best energy saving strategy for that part of your operation. And then we can do more comprehensive audits, which are more detailed than the scoping studies. And that is typically done with larger customers where we're setting up multi-year plans of ranked projects. So we say, okay, here are 10 things you can do ranked from best payback to worst. And we try to work with you to knock all of them off over some period of time. And as you identify those and you want to do them, we're able to offer incentives along the way to help you go ahead and do that. So I mentioned we also have residential programs, and really the programs at this point cover, it's about almost 98.5% of the state's residents. The rest of them are served by municipal electric companies. So the ones that are served by the regulated utilities have options for a number of resi programs. One is income-based. We're finding that more and more people qualify for that this year because of the high fuel costs across the state, high electric costs across the state, high inflation. So people are finding that energy takes up a bigger portion of their monthly income. And the way you qualify for those income-based programs, they can include fuel assistance, which is just straight assistance on paying your bill. And they can include weatherization of your home so that you don't waste as much energy, waste as much money heating it. You qualify by contacting your regional community action program. So in mine, it's Stratford County Community Action Program. wherever you happen to be located, each county has one. And you would go qualify with them, and anybody who qualifies for fuel assistance qualifies for the residential programs. So if you or somebody you know that you think might qualify, I really encourage you to reach out. The requirements are relaxed a lot this year based on some state and federal funding and some differences in how they look at those qualifying levels. A lot more people can get into those programs. So we also have a retrofit program where you can hire an auditor to come in. You pay them $100. They do an energy audit of your home, and they typically will focus on air sealing and insulating the attic and basement. And Eversource or your utility will pay for typically more than half of the cost of that project. I did mine a few years ago. We saved about 15% on our oil bill. Our house was drafty in the kids' rooms. Now it's very comfortable. They've sealed up all those leaks, and the house is, we're using a lot less fuel than we used to, and we're a lot more comfortable. We also have a new homes construction program. So if you're building a new house, we want you to build it as energy efficiently as possible. So we reward builders and customers for going beyond what code requires. So if you're interested in any of these, we also have an appliances and products program where you go into Lowe's, Home Depot, Rockies, your local hardware store, and buy things like washers and dryers, refrigerators, window air conditioners, heat pumps, things like that. You can get instant rebates on those or mail-in rebates. So for information on any of these, you can go to nhsaves.com. That's our website. And that'll give you all of the forms for any of these programs that you need and any of the background information. So as I mentioned, new construction on residential, we also have new construction on commercial. The goal is to help you build a building that's better than you have to build. So we recognize that the bulk of the cost is going to be yours to bear, but we try to get you to buy more efficient equipment, which is often more expensive equipment. And so we try to help defray that incremental cost with our incentives. So it's a performance-based system that requires us to be involved early on. We typically will hire a third-party engineer to review your plans for the building, make recommendations, and as you implement those, we offer incentives so that you avoid value engineering those improvements out of the building. We just want you to be able to build. Hopefully your building is going to be standing for 100, 150 years, and we want it to be as efficient as you can possibly build it now, because you're going to live with those decisions and with the energy bills for quite some time. So getting started, you can just visit newhampshiresaves.com. Once you're there, there's a contact us page. You can find your utility representative on that page. Give us a call. Let us know what you're doing, what you're interested in. We're happy to help you. You can also contact your utility directly. The number is on your bill. You can give us a call at our customer service. They all know how to find me and my colleagues. The other thing you can do is most of your installers in the state and your equipment distributors will know how to find us, will know how to work these programs, and oftentimes will apply on your behalf. So if you're not comfortable with the paperwork, it's very easy to find somebody who can do that for you. And that's all for me. So if anybody's got any question, I'd be happy to answer any.
Thank you so much, Mark. And then thank you, Ken and Scott as well. If anyone in the audience has any questions that we can, while we have them here, anything you'd like to ask them. CDFA represents audits, and Ken from the USDA and Mark from Eversource.
Didn't hear anything about the RGGI.
Does anybody know anything about the RGGI?
It was a Reggie credit, yeah.
Greenhouse gas.
Yeah.
That was Eversource that brought that.
Mark brought up the RGGI, the greenhouse gas.
Yep. So the Reggie program is a greenhouse gas reduction program, and essentially it's a system of auction credits that states, I believe it's 9 states that currently participate in it in the Northeast. And what happens is it's not a direct charge on your bill, but it's folded into your rate. Basically, the utilities pay into this fund, and different states do different things with the money, right? So in New Hampshire, in the past, we've done things like we had a special retail program where we did weatherization in retail facilities. We've done an industrial program. Currently, state law specifies that RGGI is to create a $2 million per year statewide budget for municipal projects. The nice thing about those municipal projects, I mentioned that I could do electric projects, and my friends at Unitil Liberty could do natural gas. With RGGI municipal projects, it's a greenhouse gas program. It's not just an electric program. So RGGI doesn't care what the fuel is. So if it's a municipal project funded by RGGI, we can work with you to save propane and oil by insulating your town hall or your school or library or whatever it is.
Thank you.
I guess this is for the CDFA person. Is there a limit, lower limit on the tax credit? The 30% tax credit for solar investment? Is there a lower limit, like a $1,500 system or something? Is there anything too small to get those incentives?
Sure. Scott, did you get that?
I'm not sure if I got that. It's something about the tax credit and a lower limit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of things. I think a couple things to clarify. I talked about tax credits. That's a CDFA program for state tax credits. That is not energy related. That's a separate program. And then you have the federal investment tax credits, which the Inflation Reduction Act will be helping with. And I don't believe there's a lower limit on any of that. But then I also believe Ken spoke about lower limits on his grant making for REAP. So I just want to make sure that who is asking the question that I'm covering the right thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in and speaking to all of us tonight. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who joined us on Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much for having
Have a great
us.
night, everybody.
Have a good night.